I work at the Coffee, just below campus. I'm a barista. For those who don't know, a barista makes coffee. I've brewed thousands of cups of coffee, and I create lattes with initials and pictures and designs on top. If I get a chance, I try to match the picture to the customer. I have stencils for almost anything. Nathaniel Whitcroft, that's me. The almost 21-year-old guy with mussy brown hair and mud brown eyes, with a good old-fashioned name. Named after my grandfather. It's a name just right for a boring person like me. I'm not special, or good-looking, or built. I'm not a frat boy, or a jock, or a math whiz. I don't have straight A's. I'm not on any team, part of any club, part of any social group. I'm Nathaniel, and my major is accounting. And all my friends say I am deadbeat boring. My hobbies? I can use a slide ruler, and I have a collection of every hardback Stephen King novel I could find. I've read all of them, and a couple are even signed. My favorite is Needful Things. None of that impressed my potential boyfriends. I'm just the plain old guy nobody notices. Should I mention that this Saturday, October 13th, is my birthday? I'll be 21, or as Dad used to say, I'll be free to dream dreams no mortal ever dared to dream. Dad liked to quote Edgar Allan Poe. He was like that. But Dad's dead now. Died in a car accident the night of my 18th birthday. No, I don't like celebrating my birthday, and haven't for the last 2 years, and I have no plans for this one. Coffee has the honor of being open 24/7. That's right, since we're so close to campus, we literally have people in at all times for all reasons. The closer it gets to finals, the busier we get. Guess who has the 10 to 6 shift? That's night shift. I gave up on being clean and tidy a year ago. Being a barista means all my clothes have coffee stains, especially the aprons that protect my clothes. Currently, I'm wearing a gray tee with the band Linkin Park on front and From Zero Worldwide Tour on back. I got it when they came to concert in Vegas. My friends complain that I always smell like coffee grounds. Maybe they're right. This morning was a normal early morning, about a week before the spring semester ended. I had to leave at 5 instead of the regular 6 because I had to catch the bus to pick up a refill for my diabetic test strips and medication, then catch another bus to go home, grab an hour's nap, and then catch another bus to go to my morning class, Accounting for Success, Applied Financial Analysis. It's a course that dives deep into financial statements and ratio analysis, not to mention budgeting. Believe it or not, I like the class. I like crunching numbers. No wonder my friends think I'm boring. In my backpack was the latest Stephen King novel. Hopefully I could start it later today. One of the day crew came in early to cover for me leaving. They enjoyed the extra hour of pay. I took off and caught the bus. It was a while later that I got off the bus to take the shortcut through the cemetery to my apartment. That is when my life became not boring. I don't have a boyfriend. Everybody I've dated gets tired of dating the boring guy. Nobody had ever stuck around for the third date. Remember, I'm kind of average to look at. I'm not built, I'm not striking, and I'm not rich. What I'm good at is being in the wrong place at the wrong time. The Vegas sun would crest to the horizon in an hour or so. Strange oblong dark spaces marked the headstones. Chirping crickets lightly chimed in the air. A slim crescent moon hung above me, creating shadows in the night. I shivered, not from the cold, but from a coldness, a spiritual coldness. I harumphed it off. I'm not spiritual, or religious, or anything. Ghosts and things like that don't exist. So what if I'm taking a shortcut through a cemetery? I've done it before. Whispering Hills Cemetery is weed-infested, and no one visits anymore. It ran out of grave plots 20 years ago, and it's become a national historic site. Back in 1860, when Vegas was little more than a stop on the old California Trail, 45 years before the railroad made the city we all recognize, the settlers had a fierce battle with the Paiute. It later became known as the Pyramid Lake War. Since then, people avoided the area because it was said to be haunted by ancient warriors. Later, it became a cemetery, and now it is filled up, deserted, and forgotten. A perfect spot for a shortcut. Besides, I don't believe in ghosts or witches or any of that supernatural crap. A crisp breeze held a biting edge, blowing dark leaves before it. A large white moth with pearly wings fluttered ahead of me, gently wafting through the night air, and landed on a tombstone. That's when I saw him. Thin, black hair, an odd tribal tattoo on his shoulder. Black eyes. Black, intense eyes. Shirtless, he seemed unaffected by the cold night, a wraith decorated with moonlight. He faced away from me and chanted something. Before him was an ancient grave, and resting at the side, propped against a tombstone, was a skull carved with odd letters and symbols. Before the skull burned some kind of incense. Thick and smoky, it smelled of burning grasses and a fragrance I couldn't place. "I beg of you, grandfather, speak, for I need your wisdom." The man's voice was low and steady, and it scared me. I knew his type back in school, the cool outsider kid who didn't give a crap what people thought of them. If you ever crossed them, they could handle themselves in a fight. "Raven, a warning I bring thee, son of my son," a voice whispered from the skull. Allow me to quote a passage as it is written in the Grimoire of Shadows and Echoes, written by the cursed hand of the lunatic prophet Lysander Montague back in 1673. The heart of the cosmos, shadows seethe within, lies the darkness with its tentacles that wreathe. The blasphemous god, name whispered low, doom awaits those who secretly do know. The words chilled my soul, and I stopped moving, stopped breathing. The disembodied voice rose louder. Worshipped by their dying, in their final breath, they offer their souls to the bringer of death. Arcane whispers echo in the cosmic night of Zarklathoth, a terror to incite. The man knelt and placed 5 cards on the ground, forming a kind of compass. He then said, "What does this have to do with me?" I stood there, terrified to move, for this stranger to notice me. The skull jumped a little and gave a strange cackle, and it yelled, "Blasphemous name, an omen of dread. To speak its curse is to join the dead, residing in the void, a monstrous king. Zarklathoth, the doom it brings." The unholy skull terrified me. The stillness in the air scared me. The ghostly butterfly flapped its wings and flew to the pale man with wild black hair. Things like this don't happen to ordinary, boring people like me. I wanted to run as far as I could, but I couldn't move. "Is there more, grandfather?" the man whispered. He flipped the top card over, the 10 of Swords. "In shadows your love wanders, love's touch unknown. The man unseen, in moonlight's gentle sway, blessed by the lunar glow, his grace draws near. The key now watches, night's cold embrace is here." The disembodied voice from the skull said. It sounded like chains being dragged over a tombstone. "He hides in darkness, spectral form concealed, a harbinger of secrets midst the storm. Arcane whispers name what was revealed. Speak of the hero whose fate is now sealed." Raven turned the card to the west over. The fool, but it was upside down. Quickly, he turned the middle card over. Death. I shivered. Cursed by the light, the skull said, to haunt and to seek. It dwells in void where cosmic whispers speak. Zarklathoth's evil, watcher of the night, watches with eyes that hide endless fright. That doesn't make any sense, Raven said. Speak of the virgin whose fate is now sealed. Yet a soul will arise through shadows to fight. The virgin's heart burns with celestial light. Prophecies etched in the starless skies. He shall stand against the darkness where terror lies. With courage unyielding and love as his guide, the virgin will face Zarklathoth and his sacrifice not denied. The fate of the cosmos in their hands will cling. The virgin and the dark lover, their love shared, will thwart the monstrous king. Stop, Raven said incredulously. I have to be the dark lover because I'm not a virgin. Who is the virgin? Good luck finding one of those in Vegas. Is it talking about me? I whispered. It is no coincidence that you are both here, the skull said. His name is Nathaniel. Oh my God, they are talking about me. Raven's head turned, and he stared right at me, his eyes piercing and black, his face narrow and chiseled, his mouth set grim. For a moment, he seemed more like a wild animal than a man, an animal that would attack any second. Our eyes met. Snap. Something shivered inside me. The fear encased my stomach. My feet felt like lead. I couldn't catch my breath. Panicked, I ran. This was only a dream, a hallucination. I must have fallen asleep on the bus. Maybe there had been some kind of drug in the air. Raven must be some psycho. You frightened your virgin rabbit beyond its wits, and he flees into the dark. The skull clattered in the distance. My apartment wasn't far. I'd never been good at track, but I didn't care how much noise I made. I fled through the bushes and headstones. I hightailed it as fast as I could. In the distance came a low voice, Raven's voice, saying, "Don't run." An old tombstone with faded words and rounded edges that had once been squared off. It sat there as if waiting or listening. I dove behind it, peeking out, expecting to see the man with the untamed black hair. Instead, the glowing white moth with wings that caught the moonlight fluttered nearby. He hadn't found me. I snuck out of the cemetery, across the street, and to my cheap apartment complex. I lived with my roommate, Elliot, on the 3rd floor, building 720, room 301. I bolted the locks, closed all the blinds, turned the lights out, and cowered in my bed. Tonight had to be some kind of magic act, or prank, or maybe some kind of coincidence? Talking skulls? Seriously? And a strange witch guy talking back? What was in that incense he had? I lay on my bed, fully clothed, and determined never to return to the cemetery. Taking a different bus and a longer walk seemed okay. It took almost an hour before I relaxed enough to fall asleep. My phone alarm rang. Oh, crap. Time to catch the bus. I bolted, skipping breakfast and grabbing my backpack, wallet, and keys. I sprinted to the bus stop. Unfortunately, I got there just in time to watch the bus speed away. The next one arrived in 30 minutes. Maybe my professor wouldn't notice me sneaking in late? I plopped on a bench, plugged in my earbuds, and pulled out the text for light reading. My mind drifted to last night. Raven, the strange guy, conversing with a talking skull. Even now, his eyes drew me in, and once again I felt the snap in my mind. I daydreamed about him, the narrow face, the tightness of his skin as it barely covered the taut sinew of his muscles, the uncontrolled animal passion. What would it be like to hold him, kiss him, tame his wild side? The strange dark poem reverberated in my mind. Cursed by the light to haunt and to seek, in the void he resides, where the cosmos speak. Zarklathoth. Fear from last night crept back in. I remembered the crescent moon, and the odd glowing moth, and eyes, black as the abyss, staring at me, the distant cry of the man calling my name. The squeal of an incoming bus shocked me back to reality. Was I fantasizing about the psycho from last night? In shadows he wanders, love's touch unknown, rang through my head. So what if I didn't connect with people like anyone else? Is it wrong to be a virgin at my age? Sometimes I thought I was ace, sometimes just shy. Truth is, deep down, I didn't feel comfortable with most guys. Cliché as it sounds, the men I dated only wanted one thing, and that wasn't bowling. I'm bad at bowling too. This is Vegas, including the suburbs. 3 million people live here. Odds are I'd never see Raven again. Too bad. Cute and spooky described him. Why did that infernal skull out me as a virgin? Nobody would have anything to do with me now. The professor never noticed me sneaking into class. No spooky guy followed me. When I finally got home, I slept a few hours before work, and I told Elliot, my roommate, all about the crazy guy in the cemetery. He found a heavy-duty flashlight I could use as a club, and told me to buy some pepper spray on my way to work. I took a different bus to Coffee, and I stopped at a store to buy red pepper spray before my shift. The sun had set long before I arrived. Just in case, I tucked the pepper spray in my pocket and kept the flashlight handy for my walk home. Still, I couldn't get Raven's black eyes out of my mind. Would Raven show up at the coffee shop? What would I do? Run out the back? Around 2 a.m, a coldness seeped through me, in spite of the coffee's warmth. The stillness reminded me of last night. On my 2 a.m. break, I stepped outside to look at the crescent moon. Cold and distant, its chill mirrored the air. Something fluttered in the sky. A piece of paper caught on the breeze? No. Moonlight touched its wings. The moth from last night. The skies above me watched me. The moth flew in erratic circles. I couldn't look away. It reminded me of the man from last night. The man who scared me haunted my thoughts. Maybe his darkness drew me in. Raven. There was no way that moth could be the same one as in the cemetery. It would be miles away. I forced Raven out of my mind and stepped inside Coffee. At 6 a.m., I caught the bus from my apartment. A different bus, one that avoided the cemetery. It took longer, and I had to walk further, but I felt safer, away from the psycho. That afternoon, that dark, dreamlike poem drifted through my sleep. That was my last normal night. The next night, I'd been at work for a couple of hours, and I was tasked with taking out the trash. No one liked doing it, and so it often fell to me. The night had grown cloudy and colder than usual for Vegas. The moon occasionally peeked through the clouds. The air felt darker tonight. The hairs on the back of my neck bristled. Goosebumps formed on my arms. Somewhere in the shadows, someone watched me. I dumped the trash as fast as I could and ran for the building. I didn't make it. A man, a woman, a shadow-made human blocked my way. They wore a black, wide-brimmed flat hat, and their black overcoat made them blend into the darkness. "Greetings, Nathaniel," he said, his voice warm and charming, and he had a British high-class accent. "I am a friend who can help you." Part of me wanted to trust him, but my instincts screamed danger. "How do you know my name?" I asked. "Forgive me. I am Lord Victor Blackmore, Lord of Blackmore Manor and all its estates, Keeper of the Moors," he said, touching the brim of his hat. "We've met, though I doubt you would remember." "When?" I asked. My blood turned glacial cold, and I shivered. "I believe you were a lad of 18, he said. "I visited your father right before his very tragic accident, and then we spoke briefly at his funeral." "Interesting," I said. "Neither Mom or Dad ever mentioned you." The years passed away, and I remembered standing at my father's funeral, sweating in the sun. Somebody held a black umbrella over me and Mom, but it wasn't this man. I remembered Mom arguing with someone after the funeral. Was it Victor Blackmore? "I have a keepsake of your father's," Victor said. For the first time, I noticed he wore black leather gloves. Every inch of his skin was covered, except for his face. "Trying to pass this man," I asked. "Why haven't you given it to Mom?" "Your father wanted you to have it," Victor stated. But the warmth in his voice vanished. "It's in my car. Come with me right now, and I'll give it to you." "What is it?" He seemed to trickle his fingers through the air, as if writing something. Was it my imagination that his fingers trailed smoke? "A unique and rare pocket watch. It has an inscription on the back, but I can't remember it. Come with me and see." "It's in my car," Lord Blackmore said. Something felt wrong. My feet began to move, but I didn't control them. The white moth landed atop the dumpster. Whatever force that compelled me weakened. With all my will, I forced myself to stop. I muttered, "I need to get back to work." Victor Blackmore smiled, but his smile seemed dark and sinister. "Come, young one. My car awaits," he invited. Whatever was in his car, I'm sure it wasn't good for me. However, my legs started moving again, towards him. Without my will, I focused on the moth. Once again, the compulsion lessened. I broke free and ran into Coffee. I bent over double, breathing heavily. What had just happened? My two co-workers, Timothy and Tasha, were inside. Timothy was on his phone. Tasha was at the till helping a customer. A thin customer with wild black hair, intense black eyes, and a black unbuttoned vest that let his taut chest show. His arm had an odd tribal tattoo. Around his neck he wore 3 silver necklaces with a small charm on each. One with a silver bird, one with a skull, and one with a dagger. A wrath lit by moonlight. Around his right wrist he wore several black beaded bracelets. Hematite maybe? Or polished obsidian? I recognized his narrow face immediately. Raven, the psycho from the graveyard. "You just missed Nathaniel," I heard Tasha say. "He just left to dump the trash. I'm sure he'll be back in a second. Maybe I can get you something while you wait?" Tasha poured on all the charm, and I couldn't blame her. Something about Raven made me look twice. It could have been the dangerous vibe about him, or the strange way he dressed, or the fact that my eyes followed the curve of his chest all the way to his navel. I have to admit, though he is a psycho who talks to skulls, he's also quite sexy. There I go again. 2 weird guys are looking for me, and I find myself falling for this sexy one. No, I am definitely not ace, definitely gay, definitely pathetic, and I had the feeling trouble had found me. Big time. What had the ancient poem called Raven? The dark lover. It had called me the virgin. Everybody knows what happens to virgins. In comedies, they are the butt of the joke, and in horror movies, they're the sacrifice. My palms grew clammy, and I shivered as the thought hit me. Why did my night suddenly feel like a horror movie? Raven hadn't seen me. My co-workers were too busy to notice I had come inside. Another strange man waited for me outside. My options felt limited. Either flee and take my chances with creepy stalker guy, or stay inside and make the best of it with Mr. Sexy Creepy Guy who talks to skulls. At least in here I had witnesses. I grabbed a broom and began sweeping the already clean floor. I cringed as Raven's deep voice cut through the chatter. "While I'm waiting, I'll have a caramel latte with a double-shot espresso," he said. The words sent a shiver down my spine, like the icy gusts of winter. "Size?" Tasha asked. "Large," Raven said. Somebody needed their caffeine. Timothy didn't move. Once again, I had to do everything. I set the broom to the side, washed my hands, put on skin-tight rubber gloves, and stepped beside the latte machine. I frothed the milk, then poured the caramel sauce in the large cardboard cup, poured in the espresso, mixed it, added the milk, mixed it again. Then my favorite part, spraying the top with whipped cream, and, taking one of the Halloween stencils, I made a skull on top out of the caramel drizzle. I slid on the holder and handed it to Tasha, who then handed it to Raven. Raven's eyes laser-focused on me. The man was sexier up close. I'm in trouble. Well, more trouble than I already was. I couldn't read any expression on his face. I bet he was thinking that this lowly virgin didn't have the confidence to ask people out. Look at him, all swagger and confidence wrapped up in black jeans. Bet he didn't have any trouble finding dates who stuck around. Maybe both guys and girls like the otherworld bad boy creepiness vibe. "Thank you," he said to Tasha. "Let me know when he comes in." "What?" My jaw opened slightly, and my self-confidence dropped 10 notches. Talk about the death of all my daydreams. He didn't recognize me? Raven took his coffee, smiled at the caramel skull I'd drawn in it, and sat down. His smile made my day, but he never looked at me. Even the creepy guy from last night looked past me. Am I so plain and ordinary that nobody ever takes a second look my way? Suddenly, a pang of longing hit me. I missed Dad. He spouted off the weirdest Edgar Allan Poe quotes, but had a way of making them sound like wisdom. He'd been there for every failed baseball swing, for every messy science fair project. The best things in life make you sweaty, and that is your best, he used to say. Weird, but it always made me feel like $1,000,000. The void of his absence threatened to swallow me whole, the grief and ever-present ache in my chest. Tasha set another order in front of me, saying, "Hey, Space Case, get with the program. I need 2 plain coffees, both medium, a caramel frap, and an iced coffee to go." "Got it," I mumbled, diving into the order with trembling hands. Every stolen glance at Raven sent my heart into overdrive, echoing like a drum in my ears. I couldn't help but recall Poe's tale of the beating heart, and my own seemed to thump just as loudly. Deep into that darkness peering, an old quote surfaced, drawing my thoughts to the shadow enigma that was Raven. Crap, he almost caught me looking at him. I turned away, forcing myself to focus on the coffee, not on the man sitting only a dozen feet away, or the creeper just outside the door. Raven laid out his tarot deck on the table with a practiced grace, shuffling the cards with a fluid motion. He placed 3 cards face down, each movement deliberate and measured. When he turned over the middle card, a frown creased his brow. The next card elicited a shake of his head, but his lips curved into a smile, a secret only he understood. Wish I could see what the cards were, but then again, maybe I don't want to. He gathered up his cards, wrote something on a napkin, and walked back to Tasha. Would you give this to Nathaniel when he comes back? She looked at him as if he had spoken ancient Sanskrit. Excuse me, she said. He's the man who made your coffee. She then pointed at me. Raven looked at his coffee, then looked at coffee-stained me. Remember, I'm the walking advertisement for coffee-stained clothes, and skin, and hair, and I smell like coffee, too. I'm not pretty, or glamorous, or adventurous, or charming, or anything. I'm about as ordinary as you can get. Top that off, Raven is supposed to be the dark lover. I'm about as inexperienced in social matters as you can get. To make matters even worse, he didn't even know I was in the room. I felt like that piece of toilet paper you scrape off your shoe, humiliated and worthless. Oh, he said, you're Nathaniel? He gave me that up and down look, like he was examining a bowl of blueberries, his face completely expressionless. He wasn't expecting me to be me. I tried a quick smile, but I'm sure it came across as sad and pathetic. That's me, Mr. Pathetic. Humiliated is my first name. I wasn't anywhere close to as exotic as he was. Give me a pair of glasses and I'd be a complete geek. I'm Raven Stonefeather, he said, faking a quick smile. Glad you liked your coffee, I said, my shoulders tense as if made from granite. I'd like to take you out to breakfast as soon as you get off shift, he said. The sexy, psycho, dark lover weirdo who talked to skulls wanted to ask me out to breakfast? I held my breath, my mind racing. How do I respond to him? Tasha overheard everything. I could imagine what she was thinking. That the guy who couldn't keep a date interested in him just had been asked out. Then Raven said something surprising. Grandpa likes you. He's also good at tracking. Dark, sexy, he plays with tarot cards and dresses in all black. That is, when he was dressed. He smelled of some musky incense. His grandfather was an engraved skull. He likes my coffee. What's not to like? I thought sarcastically. Raven's eyes widened, and he stood a little taller. I couldn't believe it. He must be 3 inches taller than me. The side door swung open, and in walked the other psycho of the night, Lord Victor Blackmore. The adrenaline spiked, fear coursing through me like a live wire. Lord Blackmore locked onto me, mouth narrowing with a slight, predatory grin. My heart beat like a speeding locomotive. Sweat slicked my palms. What I did shocked even me. I got closer to Raven, seeking shelter behind the intense, skinny, sexy psycho, who talked to skulls that spouted dark, insane poetry. His wild black hair and intense black eyes were strangely comforting. I wasn't experienced with this kind of thing. I didn't know the rules. I'm a virgin, but something about Raven drew me in, and I couldn't stop myself. Even if he hated me, I was scared. Very scared. Without thinking, I leaned in and kissed Raven, lightly, on the lips, barely touching them, barely breathing, my heart thumping and my abs tensed. A scared, timid kiss. I didn't know what a good kiss felt like. I didn't know what lines I crossed. I had made out maybe 5 times before. None of those kisses were particularly good. I know that. I don't have much experience. Most of my dates never stuck around. Why would Raven be any different? The moments stretched out, feeling like minutes. He smelled of incense. I inhaled his muskiness, and felt the light quiver in his lips, his expressive lips, the soft touch of his breath on my skin, the feel of his skin next to mine, the sound of his surprised inhale. Raven was the dark lover. I was the virgin. My hand reached up, held his cheek, ran through his hair, and held the back of his neck. I needed him to hold me. The voice of the old skull whispered in the back of my mind. In shadows the virgin wanders, love's touch unknown, a frightened rabbit ready to bolt. Shocked, scared, I pulled back, gasping for air. It was a moment I would remember for the rest of my life. Now would be the perfect time for Raven to look at me, plain, coffee-stained me, and learn that I couldn't compare to this exotic man, the man of my dreams. My chest ached. Something hot burned in my eyes. What had I just thought? Raven was the man of my dreams? Tasha yelled, "Never thought you had it in you, space case. By the way, when you come back to Earth, we need 2 large coffees, one with caramel flavoring." This was all too much. I locked eyes with Raven, seeing concern ripple through them. Tasha looked at me, waiting for me to get started on the new order. Timothy still played on his phone. Raven stared at me, his strong hand gripping mine. Lord Victor Blackmore approached the till as if he were to order. I didn't know what to do. The chaos in my mind blew with hurricane-force winds. The world spun, shaking as if there were an earthquake only I felt. I had just kissed Raven. The last time I had kissed anybody had been at least 6 months ago. The last time I dated. What had been his name? Didn't matter. He told me I kissed like a pregnant llama. It was so bad that we only dated twice, and then he never called or texted again, or responded to mine. This would end the same, worse maybe. I'm not worth their effort. "Nathaniel," Raven said in that deep, husky voice of his. I'm a freak. The chaos won, or the sadness, or the humiliation. I broke free of Raven's grip, bolted to the back, ran outside, and breathed the Vegas exhaust-riddled air. The crescent moon broke free of the clouds. The air had cooled even more. It didn't matter. I quickly checked my phone for the next bus to take me back to my apartment. I was done with the night. But the night wasn't done with me. As fast as I was, Raven was faster. He seized my hand, holding it even tighter than before, and said, "You don't have to be afraid, at least not of me." Hysterical, I yanked on his hand, trying to force him to let me go. His arms encircled me, hugged me close, held me. God, he was strong, immobilized. I struggled to breathe. My attempt to push him away was futile. His grip was firm and unyielding. "I heard the skull call you the dark lover. You want to sacrifice me because I'm a virgin," I spat. "Let me go. I haven't done anything to you. I won't say anything about what I saw. I promise." "Calm down. We need to talk," he shouted. Like you needed to talk to plain old me. Back in high school, guys like you wouldn't give guys like me a second chance, let alone a first one. College was no different. I had to escape. And fast. I remembered the pepper spray in my pocket. Elliot had told me to buy the strongest possible. Terrified, I trembled. I thrust my hand into my pocket, pulled out the small tube, and sprayed it. Right into those beautiful, intense eyes that drew me in. I felt guilty the moment it hit him. Raven released me and swore, coughing, crying, bending almost double with a long, ragged cough. I bolted like the Devil 16, fastest car in the world. Yep, I'm a trivia magnet for useless facts. As I neared a bus stop, only then did I see the irony. I had wanted Raven to hold me. Be careful what you wish for. I clutched the little red cylinder in my hand. As soon as the bus arrived, I climbed aboard. No sign of floating skulls or skinny sexy guys with black wild hair or an overdressed English dude with a hat. Climbed on the bus. At least I was safe. But was it safe to go home? Probably not. I left a voicemail on Elliot's phone, then used mine to coordinate buses, and headed down to Henderson. Henderson, a suburb of Vegas, located southeast of the city, was where Mom had moved after Dad died. Maybe I could crash on her couch for a few days, or a week, while I figured things out. Besides, no matter how good Raven's grandfather could track, he wouldn't be able to track me down there. How did a skull track people anyway? Long I sat there, wondering, fearing, doubting, as my father used to say. Late-night buses aren't as frequent, so it took me a long time to reach Mom's neighborhood. Henderson is the family-friendly part of Vegas. It's almost like entering a different town. Beautiful homes, family parks, and lots of churches and grocery stores. Don't believe me? Take a 2-minute drive and count how many you see. I climbed out the bus and, as expected, found a text from Tasha. She was my boss, but she worried about me like a mom. She thought Raven a druggie, and Lord Blackmore a plainclothes detective. I texted that I was fine and had escaped the weirdos. She then wished me happy birthday because she had Saturday off. I groaned. Today was Saturday. I was scheduled to work tonight. I arrived at Mom's condo a little after 6 a.m. I hadn't been followed, but I did see a white moth land on a nearby bush. I didn't have a chance with Raven now. Not only had I run away from him, I had pepper sprayed him. To top it off, my little kiss must have felt like a chicken pecking at his lips. Why had I kissed him anyway? It's not like I knew the guy. But his nearness made my heart leap into my throat. No, I had ruined any chance with this man. Letting myself in, I heard Mom in the other room getting ready for work. I yelled, "I'm home!" Both Mom and a man I did not know came out of the bedroom, both getting dressed as if they both lived here. Awkward. I blushed down to my knees. "Who's this?" both me and the man asked simultaneously. Mom glanced at me and said, "Hector, this is my son Nathaniel." "Hi," I mumbled, staring at the floor to try and hide my awkwardness. I know I should have texted, but I needed a place to stay. "Roommate problems? Does he accept you, that you're gay?" Hector said. Oh, great. Mom must have told him all about me. Our conversation morphed into silence, and Mom seemed uneasy, and she broke the ice by saying, "Nathaniel, have you had breakfast?" "Not exactly," I said, and faced Mom. "Did you or Dad know a Lord Blackmore? You know, British guy, dresses and clothes the rest of us can't afford, gives off a creepy vibe. He found me at work tonight." I didn't mention anything about Raven. At least not yet. Let's start with the creepier guy after me. Said he knew you and Dad, had even been to Dad's funeral. Also said he had a pocket watch that belonged to Dad. "It's only been a couple of years since the funeral," Mom said. "You shouldn't have come home." "What do you mean?" I asked. "I turned 21 today. According to Dad, I'll be free." "Honey, you must understand," Mom said. A sixth sense chilled me. Something bad was about to happen. A line from Poe ran through my head. Dad often said it when I got bullied in school. And all I loved alone. I understood it now. I'm on my own. Something had happened here, beyond Mom dating Hector. I couldn't count on her. This wasn't home anymore. "Do you mind if I raid the fridge?" I asked. Mom gave Hector an odd look. "I'll make breakfast and we can talk. Your dad and I were very young, not even married when I got pregnant," Mom said. Emotion warbled her voice. Hector and I followed Mom into the kitchen. She got out eggs and cheese and bacon from the fridge and pulled a pack of bagels from the cupboard. "You already told me about that," Hector said, "and I told you it doesn't matter. I don't judge." Mom leaned back and stared at the ceiling. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "You don't understand. It was back when we lived in Massachusetts. We didn't have any food. Our parents kicked us out. We had no place to go. Your dad joined this cult, and they promised us a lot of money. We didn't ask questions until they wanted to know about Nathaniel's birth." "What was the cult?" Hector asked, grabbing the cream cheese and jam out of the fridge. "Have I heard of it? What did they really want?" "It was when we lived in Shady Falls, Massachusetts, the place known for its apple orchards and apple pies. They prided themselves on the special checkerboard lattice that they put on their pies. It was their trademark. In summertime, we always had the Taffy Festival. Shady Falls always made the best saltwater taffy." "Good old hometown America," I said, taking a bagel and spreading cream cheese on it. "The cult seemed harmless enough," Mom continued. Her hands began shaking. "They were good friends. They helped us get through some tough times." "So why did you move 2,700 miles away?" Hector asked. He opened the package of bacon and placed the bacon in the pan. "They wanted my baby and offered us $1 million for him. For you, Nathaniel. They wouldn't take no for an answer," Mom said quietly, her hands dropping to her sides. What had the ancient poem called me? The Virgin? Did they want to sacrifice me as a baby? Why? "Some people helped us. I think Stonefeather was their name," Mom said. "They were from the Kumeyawa Reservation. That's a Native American tribe in Massachusetts. I remember that your dad's truck had broken down as we were running away, and this old man with his son and 3-year-old grandchild stopped by to help us." "Ancient history, Mom," I said. "What does this have to do with now?" "We took the money and ran, never looking back," Mom said. A sick feeling sank deep into my gut. I didn't believe what I had just heard. I refused to believe it. "You sold me to a cult when I was a baby?" I yelled. "You did what?" Hector shouted. "We were stupid kids, and we didn't know any better," Mom said, this time not stopping the waterworks. "Why do they want me now?" I asked, trying and failing to stay calm. A forceful tapping banged on the front door. Mom jumped. She wiped her hands on her dress. "Another early morning visitor. When did we become so popular? I'll see who it is," Hector said. But I think he really wanted to leave Mom for a few minutes to clear his head. I hoped it was Raven at the door, and I also dreaded that it was Raven. What right, after pepper spraying him, did I expect him to show up? I'm both scared of him and lusting after him at the same time. Who else could it be? My stomach crawled, and I held the bagel without eating it. Nobody knew I was here, right? "They arrived last night," Mom said to me, her voice warbling. "I'm sorry. I didn't think you'd come here." I stood, sudden panic flooding my nerves. Who arrived? Mom gave me a faltering smile but didn't say anything. The front door opened, and Hector said, "Can I help you?" A brusque voice said, "Where is Nathaniel?" A female voice then added, "Our Lord wants what's his. Your wife accepted his money. Now it's time to deliver." "We're not married," Hector said. I had to run. Mom stood by the sink, a statue that didn't move. I only had one problem. Mom's condo did not have a back door. It did have a sliding glass door that led out onto a small balcony. "No!" Mom shouted. I sprinted for the sliding glass door. Something jabbed into my right shoulder, the needle piercing deep. Ow! I took another step and stumbled. My mind went blank. Numbness spread all over. I reached back and pulled out a yellow cylinder with a long needle and a red puffy tuft on the end. A tranquilizer dart. They shot me. As the darkness swallowed me, I saw the two attackers, both dressed in black suits and sunglasses. The last thing I heard, "You two, on the floor. If you dare call the police, you'll be in the grave next to your sons." "All that we see or seem is but a dream within a dream," I thought as I awoke. Another one of Dad's Poe quotes. Except this dream came with a hangover. What had they shot me with? Something silky covered my eyes. Maybe somebody's tie, perhaps? And I was lying on my back. The smooth zip ties cut into my wrists as they bound my hands in front of me, but my legs remained free. They hadn't gagged me either. Shirtless and barefoot, I shivered in the cool night. I felt the cool dirt under my back. The ground was covered in prickly weeds and dried leaves. Around me, crickets chirped. A light breeze rustled through some nearby dried leaves, and a man took light steps toward me, his feet making crispy, crunching sounds in the leaves. The air smelled of burnt sage and candle wax. Great. I wasn't ready for them to shove a dagger into my heart. Set the coffin near the bench, and somebody dragged Nathaniel into the symbol of Zarklathoth. He said in a British accent, "Lord Victor Blackmore." A woman spoke. I recognized her voice as the one being at my mom's place. "Will this take long? If somebody sees our light and calls the police, this party will end pretty quick." "Once midnight tolls, all I have to do is read the incantation from the Grimoire of Shadows and Echoes. Sacrifice Nathaniel, and my wife will come back to life," Lord Blackmore said, his voice trembling with both excitement and dread. "Where do you want the lousy book?" another man asked. "It's heavy." "Are you a twit? Show some respect for the scriptures of Zarklathoth," Lord Blackmore stated, his eyes flashing with anger. "Place it gently on the tombstone, near the head of the coffin. The grimoire is older than this country." "I can't believe that old book is that old. I mean, it's paper, right?" the man muttered, his voice wavering. "Paper doesn't survive that long, you dim-witted cretin," Lord Blackmore roared. "It's written on bat-wing parchment, and the cover is python skin. Handle it with care." A cold wind howled through the graveyard, sending shivers down my naked torso. The woman glanced around nervously. "What are we going to do with the body, my lord?" the woman asked. The next words chilled me, as fear slithered through my veins, coiling tightly around my heart. "Once Lady Blackmore is alive, and Zarklathoth has fed on his sacrifice, she won't be needing the casket," Lord Blackmore responded, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "We'll hide Nathaniel's body in it and dispose of it once we return to my manor." The distant tolling of a clock sounded, signaling that midnight was fast approaching. Shadows danced around the tombstones, and a sinister feeling hung in the air. "Are you sure this is where the ley lines intersect?" the woman asked. Lord Blackmore gleamed with an unholy fervor. "This is the spot. We have only minutes left. Prepare yourselves." I had to get out of here. Desperation clawed at my chest as I struggled and pulled against the zip ties, but they were too tight. My wrists burned, and blood trickled from the cuts I made while trying to free myself. However, I managed to shift their makeshift blindfold. Once loosened, I slid my head a little, and it came off. I could see. We were back in the Whispering Pine Cemetery, in the exact spot I had seen Raven the other night. I couldn't see Raven, or his grandfather's skull. I would die alone, and panic surged through me. Lit torches surrounded us, forming a rough circle, their flickering flames casting eerie shadows. Within that circle were at least 100 candles, with a woman in the process of lighting them. Lord Victor Blackmore and 6 cultists, dressed in ominous red robes, tended to the coffin. One cultist stood menacingly close to me. Atop a nearby gravestone lay a dark metal dagger covered in odd filigree lines. It absorbed the light, its presence chilling. Things like this don't happen to boring people like me. My parents had sold me for $1 million when I was a baby and then snuck out of the deal. "Why are you doing this?" I yelled, my voice echoing through the graveyard. Lord Blackmore looked away from the elaborate coffin and fixed his cold gaze on me. "It is a simple trade. Your life for my wife's. Your father sealed the deal with his own blood," he said in his British accent, his tone devoid of remorse. "Let me go," I screamed, straining at the zip ties with renewed fervor. "No," Lord Blackmore said, his voice ringing with finality. He walked over to the grimoire and opened it to a bookmarked page. "Positions. It is time." He lifted the odd-looking dagger. Its blade seemed to pulse with dark energy. The cultists took their positions around me, one holding a bowl I assumed was for my blood. I fought against the bonds and tried to get to my feet. 2 men held me down. I screamed and screamed, my voice raw with terror. Lord Victor Blackmore began reading from the writings of Lysander Montague, the lunatic prophet. His voice transformed, becoming like gravel. He spoke in a language that had been dead before mankind had existed. The wind whipped up, and for a moment the heavens seemed speckled with leprous eyes, and the trees danced like tentacles. The cultist chanted, their voice melting into a cacophony of dread. Lord Blackmore slowly walked to my side, dagger raised high. This was it, my final moment. Nobody could help me. No matter what I tried, I couldn't budge. The men held me down. I turned my head and closed my eyes. This was it. "Grandfather thinks you're stupid," said a deep, powerful voice that I recognized. Raven Stonefeather. The ritual came to an abrupt halt. Everybody, including me, snapped their heads in the direction of that voice. Raven, with his wild black hair and intense eyes, perched atop the coffin like a harbinger of chaos. In one hand he held a 6-inch rectangular strip of red paper, adorned with odd calligraphic symbols. The other hand held a lit candle that flickered ominously. A white moth fluttered above him, casting an eerie shadow, and then landed on a tombstone. The etched skull rested on the coffin beside him, its dark gaze matching Raven's. "Worthless brat, you've interrupted the ritual," Lord Blackmore's voice thundered throughout the graveyard, his fury palpable. Raven's eyes blazed with defiance. "I'll do more than that," he declared. "I'm of the Kume-Ava, the hunters of this world. You will let Nathaniel go, or I will drop the candle onto this rotting corpse, and we'll watch it burn. I think it's so dry it will catch fire immediately." Raven's voice echoed throughout the graveyard, a defiant challenge that shattered the ritual spell. The cultists hesitated, glancing nervously at one another, their chants faltering. They looked at Lord Blackmore with a mixture of both fear and dread. Lord Blackmore's face twisted with rage. "The Kume-Ava are extinct. You dare to threaten me, boy? You will pay for this insolence." "Do we look extinct?" Grandfather said. "How could Raven be here? I had run from him, pepper-sprayed him, and fled to Henderson. There was no way that he could be here, rescuing me." My eyes blinked away tears. I had treated him horribly, but he was here anyway. How? The answer came to me. Raven had once stated, "Grandfather is good at tracking." Raven stood firm, the candle's flame illuminating his determined expression. "Release Nathaniel, or I will burn this corpse and your plans to ashes." With a guttural snarl, Lord Blackmore lunged toward Raven. But a sudden gust of wind extinguished the candles, plunging the graveyard into darkness. The sky above roiled with unnatural energy, and a deafening roar filled the air. Something unholy was coming. "Nathaniel, you must now leave that spot," Grandfather yelled. In the chaos, I felt the grip of the cultists weaken. Summoning every ounce of strength, I wrenched free from the zip ties and sprang to my feet. I pushed through the cultists and fell. Raven tossed the lit candle aside and rushed to my aid. A blinding flash of light erupted from the grimoire, and several bloody tentacles materialized, all bearing leprous eyes. Zarklathoth had manifested, its form radiating otherworldly power. The entity raised a tentacle, and the cultists were thrown back by an invisible force. Lord Blackmore's eyes widened in terror. "No, this is not possible." A voice resonated from the skies, filled with ancient horror. "Victor Blackmore, your time is over." "Master, I have the sacrifice right here. Take Nathaniel. He's the one I promised," Lord Blackmore screamed, his voice desperate. Raven stood in front of me, holding the red strip of paper before him. "Great Zarklathoth, return to your darkness. There is no sacrifice." "I will take what's mine," the heavens thundered. The tentacles grabbed Lord Blackmore. He screamed, his body disintegrating into shadows that were swallowed by the night. The tentacles vanished back into the book. Raven, holding my hand, guided us to the book, and we closed it, together. I picked it up, holding it tight. The book shivered, as if alive. The cemetery fell silent. Raven and I stood together, our breaths ragged. The cultists were gone, leaving us alone. The skull known as Grandfather chuckled. "Great courage you have shown. Balance is restored. But no, the darkness never fades." "Look, I'm sorry about the pepper spray," I said, my voice trembling with relief. "Why did you save me?" Raven shrugged and said, "You're a lousy aim, even with pepper spray. Tell you what, buy me breakfast and we'll talk about the why." "Like a date?" I said, not believing what I heard. I took a deep breath, the weight of the ordeal settling upon me. "Thank you, Raven. I don't know what I would have done without you." Raven smiled, a hint of mischief in his eyes. "Don't mention it. Let's get out of here before something else decides to show up." I returned his smile and said, "What do you want for breakfast?" Before Raven could answer, a woman sat up in the coffin. Lady Blackmore, now restored to life, had arisen. She wore a faded wedding dress and a necklace of black pearls. Lady Blackmore took one look around, climbed out of her coffin. "Victor," she yelled. Zarklathoth was true to his word, Raven said. He traded one life for another. His followers ran away. "Zarklathoth took your husband," I said. With a look of pure rage, she disappeared into the night, leaving me and Raven alone in the moonlit graveyard. "Why didn't he take me?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Contrary to all the old legends," Raven said with a wicked grin, "virgins taste awful." With that, Raven leaned over and kissed me. Warm, sensuous, intimate. The best kiss I've ever had. As we walked away, the moonlight shone brightly on us. Our future was uncertain, but we knew we could face whatever came next. Together. And in the shadows, was that a pair of leprous eyes watching us? Waiting for the right moment to strike? No, it's just my imagination, right? The end, at least for now. Thank you everybody for listening. I'm Gio, and I appreciate you staying to the end. Thank you for all your prayers and well wishes. It's really helped me recuperate a lot faster, and I appreciate it. My writing schedule has slowed down a little bit. I'll be posting a story every 2 weeks instead of every 1 week, so expect a new one in about 2 weeks. Thank you everybody for listening. I appreciate it. Peace and love, my friends.